Hey, hopefully the audio on this will be clear. So I want to speak about some pretty profound issues. To be honest, this wasn't a planned video, but I feel compelled to say something because inevitably it's going to divide opinions quite sharply. I want to talk a bit about Hilary Benn's speech to the House of Commons earlier this evening. Um, well, the vote has gone ahead. We are now going to bomb Syria. Um, that's not something to celebrate. It's a somber occasion, as it should be. Like I say, over the last 72 hours, my opinions have really swayed from one side to the other. At the moment, I have to say I am more of the view that this is the right course of action. And that's not to say that it's going to be without problems. It's too early to say. But I thought very carefully about both arguments, and this is the conclusion I've come to. Anyway, to get to the point, one of the things that's motivated me to make this video is that someone I know, not a friend but an acquaintance, has put on his timeline, Facebook timeline, um, he had quite a scathing attack on Hilary Benn. If you're from outside the UK, Hilary Benn is the shadow Foreign Secretary, in other words, the Foreign Secretary of the opposition party. He comes from a prestigious political family. His father was a very well-known left-wing figure who passed away last year at the age of 84. Um, Ben Jr., Hilary Benn, is much more centrist than his father, and as such controversial among left-wingers. But anyway, this is being called one of the most powerful speeches ever made in the House of Commons. And that's coming from Tories. So that's saying something. I agree with that. I think it was a very, very emotional speech. Um, and whether you agree or disagree with Ben, I don't think anyone could deny it was powerful oratory. Anyway, this guy that I know called him a warmonger, said he was very disappointed in him and so on. Well, I watched the speech, and yes, it was a call for military action. But as far as I'm concerned, he called a spade a spade. He called Daesh a fascist organization that believes they are superior to everyone in the chamber. And that is something that they do believe. This is at the very core of Islamist thinking. Um, so I don't see anything controversial in what he actually said. I'm not talking about the position he's taken. Obviously, that's divisive. But I'm talking about the actual wording. And what my acquaintance has said is, I had to respond to it. I don't want a back and forth, but I couldn't sort of let that go on challenged because it was just plain, in my opinion, just wrong. Um, Probably that speech swayed a few members. Now, as for him being a warmonger, well, I think this is something that really bothers me about those who are real passionate pacifists, and that is the simplicity in which they view the world. They simply refuse to recognize the complexities of complex issues. To them, everything is war and peace, but that's just not reality because Daesh has a stated aim of spreading a caliphate. Now, I'm of the view that there is a risk that civilians will die in these areas, but I'm adamant that not a single civilian will be spared from inaction because they're going to end up being enslaved by Daesh or executed by Daesh if they're a minority or killed by the Syrian regime. So the idea that if we don't take action, then that'll be great for civilians is profoundly naive. And the idea that Daesh would see the light and find peace and lay down their arms if we don't take action is also profoundly naive. This is a death cult. And I agree with Hilary Benn. I think it was Hilary Benn said it may have been someone else actually. There were a lot of emotional speeches today, but someone said that this is the closest thing we have to fascism in the 21st century. I more or less agree with that because the totalitarianism of their thinking, their utter intolerance, violent intolerance of anyone else, the stated agenda, all of these things together is essentially fascism. Now, Hilary Benn pointed out that in the 30s, socialists and trade unionists joined the international brigades in the Spanish Civil War. The Labour Party has a history of interventionism and internationalism. Now, my problem with pacifism is that it has no answers for dealing with a mentality that will not compromise. To me, pacifism, this sort of pacifism, is simply profoundly naive because it doesn't understand the language of totalitarianism. Pacifism can be a noble thing, and I'm not bashing the concept of pacifism, but I think this idea that spreading pacifist message will make the world this utopian, peaceful place. It's a lovely concept, but it simply doesn't figure when you're dealing with an ideology like Salafist Islamism. Because even if Russia, America, France, and now Britain weren't bombing Daesh, Assad would be, and even if Assad wasn't, it would be happening in Nigeria. Sister organization Boko Haram, I believe they've changed their name now. What frustrates me about the pacifist position, apart from being pretty arrogant, because they do tend to see themselves as having a moral platform above everyone else, um, is its incredible naivety. I don't believe you can compromise with an organization like Daesh. Now, people will say, but in Northern Ireland, the British government eventually had to compromise with the IRA. The IRA, and I think I've made this point in a previous video, was a murderous terrorist organization. And, there were long and hard negotiations. But the characteristics are very, very different from Daesh. In my opinion, compromise with this organization means giving them what they want. And that's something that, to me, is stomach turning. Um, and I just wish some of those in the Stop the War coalition and opposed to bombing would be a bit more open-minded about the complexities of this situation. I think there's very few people who are advocating strikes are making that decision easily. And this idea that it's this gung-ho, jingoistic thing, I don't see anyone waving Union Jacks. This isn't like the Falklands. It's not like a jingoistic adventure about showing off British power or something. All the speeches I've heard today have been very emotional and very, I think these people have made very difficult decisions. And those who called Hilary Benn a warmonger, my message would be, well, what would you do? If you're an elected representative, okay, you vote against the action, but what would you actually do? What alternative would you suggest? Now, to be fair, a lot of those who are voting against military intervention have pointed out that they haven't made the decision lightly. This is a somber evening. The decision to go to war always is. But I do get a bit tired of certain pacifists yelling at people and preaching about how morally righteous they are. I think they've tough questions to answer. Appeasement comes to mind, and I don't have any regrets for using that word because I believe Daesh are evil. And a large number of those who are condemning the government, I haven't actually seen them produce any answers. Now, I don't expect citizens like myself to come up with big, complex 5-year plans and this sort of thing, but at the very least, if you're going to vocally take a position against something, you should have at least some concept of an answer for the alternative. And a lot of those who are protesting tonight, I don't think they do. I think they're protesting for the sake of it. I think they will protest no matter what. I think if Britain was attacked tomorrow and 1,000 people were killed, they would still be opposed to the government taking any action. I think Hilary Benn in the speech made the point. What sort of country would we be? Actually, it was Philip Hammond. What sort of country would we be if we ignore the request of our neighbour, France? This is not isolationism. This is the opposite of imperialism. It's internationalism. So I'm not going to say Hilary Benn's speech alone has swayed me, but it definitely played a role. I've looked at both sides very carefully. I still believe there's compelling arguments on both sides, and still think there's challenges on both sides. I'm swayed towards being in favour of the airstrikes. That doesn't mean I'm gung-ho. Doesn't mean I take any pleasure from it. Does mean that I am looking at the alternative, and I think the alternative is implausible. I mean, as was pointed out to one of the leaders of the Stop the War coalition, MPs have been debating this all day. It's not like they just decided to go into war. This has been exhaustively debated. Final figures were, I believe, 397 ayes to 211 noes. I mean, Hilary Benn got credit from across the House, from the Tory side for his powerful speech, and also from Labour for standing up for Jeremy Corbyn. I'm pleased he done that. And I will give Jeremy Corbyn credit. I think he's shown real leadership by allowing an open vote. That was politically brave. I do give him credit for that. It showed he's a Democrat. Hilary Benn defended him, said he's not a terrorist sympathiser, he's a decent man. I do think Cameron should apologise for that. All I'm going to say, if you're watching this video and you completely disagree with what I'm saying, and you completely disagree with what Hilary Benn is saying, all I would say is at least concede that both options present problems. At least concede this is not black and white. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. I'd totally be understanding of that because I myself have been very, I've got very, very mixed opinions on this. There's a lot of international issues I'm pretty clear about, but not this. I'm swayed towards being in favour of the airstrikes. That doesn't mean I'm enthusiastic about it. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm just going to repeat myself. But that's all I'm going to say. If you think I'm full of shit, if you disagree with what I'm saying, fair enough. People can think it's a position of warmongering, but the accusation can equally be levelled that the alternative position is appeasement. And that's what we've come to. There are no easy answers. And those who present this as being simple, I think, are not only very gullible and very naive, in some cases they're outright dishonest. Because in some cases I think they know full well that there is no easy answers here. leave it there.